October 14th, 1943, 25,000 feet above Germany. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano crouches in the cramped tail section of his B-17, hands gripping twin 50 caliber machine guns that weigh more than he does. Through the small plexiglass window, he watches a Focke-Wulf 190 positioning for an attack run. 6 o'clock low, the bomber's most vulnerable angle. Romano squints through his ring and bead sight. The primitive aiming system, essentially two metal posts he must align with his target, offers no compensation for speed, no calculation for deflection, no help whatsoever as both aircraft hurtle through the sky at combined closing speeds exceeding 500 miles per hour. He fires. Tracers arc harmlessly behind the diving fighter. The FW-190's cannons flash. 20mm shells tear through aluminum like tissue paper. This scene repeats itself 291 times today across the 2nd Schweinfurt raid. The 8th Air Force dispatches 291 B-17 flying fortresses deep into Germany without fighter escort. By nightfall, 60 bombers, more than 20% of the attacking force, will be shot down. Another 138 return so badly damaged they'll never fly again. 600 American airmen are dead. The mathematics are brutal and unsustainable. At this rate, no bomber crew will statistically survive their required 25 missions. Post-mission analysis reveals the grim truth. Tail gunners, supposedly the bomber's last line of defense against the preferred German attack angle, achieve hit rates below 8%. Fighter pilots need merely attack from the rear, endure a few seconds of inaccurate return fire, and methodically destroy America's billion-dollar strategic bombing campaign one fortress at a time. Senior commanders gather at 8th Air Force headquarters in High Wycombe, England. The defensive armament supposed to make the B-17 a flying fortress has failed catastrophically. Without a solution, daylight precision bombing, the entire strategic doctrine faces cancellation. What these commanders don't know is that at that very moment, on a cold hard stand at Bassingbourn Airfield, a 22-year-old tail gunner with barely a high school education is sketching a design in his logbook that violates multiple Army Air Forces regulations. A design that will be called mechanically impossible by weapons engineers. A design that will triple tail gun accuracy and save thousands of American lives. This is the story of the innovation they tried to ban and the gunner who refused to stop. To understand why Romano's innovation proved so revolutionary, you must first understand the impossible problem tail gunners face in 1943. The B-17 flying fortress enters combat with a defensive philosophy borrowed from naval warfare, bristling with enough machine guns to create overlapping fields of fire. The bombers theoretically protect themselves through sheer volume of lead. Army Air Force's promotional materials call it a flying battleship. Reality proves brutally different. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano reports to Bassingbourn Airfield, England, in August 1943 as a replacement tail gunner for the 91st Bomb Group. He's a former factory worker from Pittsburgh. No college degree, no engineering background, barely 19 years old when he enlists. The Army trains him for 6 weeks, how to clear jams, estimate range, and pray his shots connect. His assigned position, the tail gunner's station, is barely larger than a coffin. He must kneel on a bicycle seat, feet braced against the aircraft's structure, hands wrestling 84-pound Browning M2 machine guns through a cramped field of fire. The guns pivot on a simple yoke mount. His aiming system consists of a ring and bead sight, a metal circle with a post at the front, like sights on a frontier rifle. To hit a diving fighter, Romano must estimate the target's speed relative to his own aircraft, calculate deflection angle, where to aim ahead of the target, compensate for bullet drop over distance, Execute all calculations while wearing bulky gloves in negative 40-degree temperatures. Fire before the German pilot's cannons with 4 times the range. Turn his position into shrapnel-expert gunners from peacetime aerial gunnery schools attempt the same shots under controlled conditions. Their hit rates barely exceed 12%. In combat, stressed, oxygen-deprived, and under fire, actual hit rates plummet to 6 to 8%. The Luftwaffe recognizes this vulnerability immediately. German fighter tactics evolved throughout 1943. Attack from 6 o'clock level or low, except 15-20 seconds of inaccurate tailgun fire, close to 200 yards, and unleash devastating 20mm cannon strikes. Luftwaffe after-action reports describe B-17 tail positions as marginally dangerous, accuracy insufficient to deter attacks. August 17, 1943, the first Schweinfurt raid, 60 bombers lost. October 8, 1943, Bremen raid, 30 bombers lost. October 10, 1943, Münster raid, 30 bombers lost. The 8th Air Force hemorrhages bombers faster than factories can replace them. General Henry Hap Arnold, commanding general of the Army Air Forces, receives casualty reports in Washington and questions whether daylight bombing remains viable. Engineers propose solutions: more guns, bigger caliber, powered turrets. Boeing's Cheyenne Modification Center begins designing an improved tail turret, but development timelines stretch into 1944. Powered turret prototypes exist, but installation requires removing the entire tail section, a months-long factory modification impossible to implement on bombers already in England. Meanwhile, men die. Michael Romano flies his first combat mission on August 19, 1943, Gilze Rien Airfield, Netherlands. He fires 480 rounds at 3 attacking FW-190s. He believes he scores hits. Gun camera footage reviewed later reveals every tracer passed harmlessly behind the targets. The fighters destroy 2 bombers in his formation. After his third mission, Romano stays on the hard stand after landing, staring at his guns. His hands shake, not from fear, but from the physical exhaustion of manhandling 84-pound weapons through sustained fire while kneeling at altitude. That night, he sketches his first design concept. The problem isn't the gun, he realizes. It's not even the mount. It's that tail gunners fire blind, chasing targets they cannot properly track, aiming at points in space they cannot accurately predict. What Romano needs is something the Army Air Forces hasn't provided: a way to see where his bullets will actually go before he pulls the trigger. He needs a reflector sight. But the tail position's cramped quarters make standard reflector installation impossible, unless someone breaks the rules. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano possesses exactly 0 qualifications for weapons engineering. Born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in 1924, Romano drops out of high school at 16 to work the steel mills during his father's illness. He operates blast furnaces, repairs machinery, and learns practical metallurgy through trial and error rather than textbooks. When America enters the war, he enlists in the Army Air Forces, hoping to escape factory work. The military assigns him to aerial gunnery school, not because of any demonstrated aptitude, but because he's small enough to fit in the tail position. At 5'7" and 145 pounds, Romano can squeeze into spaces that eliminate larger recruits. He completes basic gunnery training at Harlingen, Texas, scoring merely average on range qualifications. His instructors note adequate trigger discipline and satisfactory weapons maintenance. Nobody identifies him as exceptional. He receives his Silver Gunner's wings and assignment to a B-17 crew as an interchangeable part in the vast machinery of the 8th Air Force. But Romano possesses one trait his training record doesn't capture. He cannot accept systems that don't work. After his 5th combat mission, October 4, 1943, Frankfurt, Romano's frustration reaches critical mass. His bomber returns with 78 flak holes and damage from 2 fighter attacks. Romano fired 620 rounds. He hit nothing. His best friend, the tail gunner on a neighboring B-17, died when a Bf-109 attacked from dead astern, and Romano's counterfire failed to deter it. That night, Romano walks to the aircraft revetment carrying a maintenance flashlight and his logbook. He climbs into the tail section, still reeking of cordite and hydraulic fluid, and stares at the ring and bead sight. The moment of insight arrives not as dramatic revelation, but as simple observation. Romano notices his reflection in the curved plexiglass window. In that distorted mirror, he can see behind his aircraft's tail, angles the ring and bead sight can never cover. He sketches rapidly. What if he mounted small mirrors at strategic angles, giving him peripheral vision beyond the gun sight's limited field of view? What if he angled them to show the tracer paths from his own guns, letting him walk fire onto targets by watching the reflection rather than squinting through inadequate iron sights? Then the crucial leap. What if he combined mirrors with a simple reflector sight, a piece of glass etched with an aiming reticle, positioned to let him track targets while simultaneously watching his tracer patterns in the peripheral mirrors? It's not a true computing gun sight, like the sophisticated gyroscopic systems in fighters. It's a jury-rigged combination of reflective surfaces and improvised aiming references. But it might work. Romano spends 3 hours that night sketching designs, measuring angles, calculating sight lines with a carpenter's protractor salvaged from the base machine shop. By dawn, he has detailed drawings of a mirror-assisted reflector sight system that requires no powered components, no complex installation, and no factory modification. He also has a problem. His design violates Army Air Force's Technical Order ZO-120EG-2, which prohibits unauthorized modifications to defensive armament. Installation without approval could result in court-martial. Romano decides he doesn't care. Romano finds his co-conspirator in an unlikely place, the base sheet metal shop. Technical Sergeant Frank Kellerman, a 38-year-old aircraft mechanic from Detroit, served in the Civilian Conservation Corps during the Depression, building bridges and repairing equipment with whatever materials he could scavenge. When Romano approaches him on October 7th with sketches and a request for off-the-books fabrication work, Kellerman studies the drawings for less than 5 minutes. "This is illegal," Kellerman says flatly. Romano nods. "Yes, Sergeant. You're asking me to modify defensive armament without engineering approval, which violates about 6 different technical orders." "Yes, Sergeant." Kellerman looks up from the drawings. "When do you fly again?" "Tomorrow. Münster." "Then we'd better work fast." They begin after midnight in a corner of the maintenance hangar, using scrap materials Kellerman has unofficially requisitioned. The base components come from salvaged aircraft parts, curved mirrors from damaged navigation equipment, plexiglass sheets from shattered canopy sections, aluminum brackets from written-off airframes. The reflector sight itself, the crucial component, comes from a wrecked P-47 Thunderbolt fighter. Kellerman removes the undamaged gun sight assembly, designed for nose-mounted installation, and re-engineers the mounting brackets to fit the tail gunner's cramped position. The mirror system proves more challenging. Romano wants 3 small convex mirrors positioned at angles that provide peripheral vision of his tracer paths without obstructing his forward view. Kellerman fabricates adjustable brackets using sheet aluminum and ball socket joints from control surface linkages. They work through the night, fitting components, testing sight lines, making adjustments. At 0430 hours, Kellerman installs the complete assembly in Romano's aircraft, a B-17